Good morning and welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Trust you had a good week. They whiz by, don't they? Political reflections. Let's start with Indo-Pak. No pullbacks in India and Pakistan, but no major movements forward. It's like everyone is holding, waiting for something. DEFCON WS alerts. The Indian pilot captured by Pakistan forces will be released on Friday as a peace gesture, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan said. I've started following a gentleman called Sadesai Rajdeep, and he's got a lot of followers on Twitter, and he speaks from the Indian perspective, but with some sense, because there's been an almighty jingoistic reaction in India, it seems. We in India may not like this, but in terms of pure optics, Imran Khan at the moment is winning the day by taking the high moral ground. He says, we have a strong case on terror, but too many of our leaders are busy calculating votes at the moment. The theory that, it's sort of Falkland Islands theory, Mrs. Thatcher's time. I said to Rajdeep, I must commend you on your sobriety, which cannot be easy in the jingo, or is it jungly, environment. And I think Imran Khan is playing it as well as he used to bowl his reverse swings. Russia's 21st century grand strategy of becoming the supreme balancing force in Afro-Eurasia is one major step closer to fruition after Foreign Minister Lavrov offered to host peace talks between India and Pakistan. And their return on investment, geopolitically speaking, is parabolic. Between this and the apparent failure of Jared Kushner peace in the Middle East plan, I just don't know what to think. If unqualified real estate heirs can't tackle complicated diplomatic issues, then who can? That's Matt Iglesias. Trump's Hanoi Hail Mary failed to score, says the CNN's Stephen Collinson. For once, Trump's attempt at counter-programming failed when the summit with Kim Jong-un broke up early with no agreement. It left the North Korea initiative, on which Trump has played huge political capital, in doubt. Washington's decision to offer Kim equal billing with the world's most powerful man, a priceless propaganda coup, in two major summits, and Trump's entire impromptu and egocentric negotiating style is now open to question. A case can be made that the US was playing hardball in ending the meeting when it didn't get what it wanted and refusing to lift sanctions before there is significant denuclearization. But the point comes back to something I wrote in April 2018. I said, what security guarantees can Trump provide Kim? Offering up bulletproof security guarantees is the equivalent of threading the needle. He can hardly forget what happened to Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi. Edward Luce in the Financial Times has written a really interesting piece. He's saying Trump is the mirror image of Teddy Roosevelt, who said America should speak softly and carry a big stick. He has promised the moon, but seems poised to accept a modest chunk of meteorite. And then he's saying Trump is itching to surrender to China on trade. We've seen this streaming drama before. Trump has a strong impulse, say, to withdraw troops from Syria or declare an emergency on the Mexican border. He reluctantly submits to contrary advice. The cycle repeats, rinses and washes a few times before Trump loses patience. Then he does what he always wanted, trusts his instincts above those around him. That is now happening on China. Trump has little interest in the patient work of negotiating changes, good or bad, that do not show up on his electoral radar. The result is a deep split within his administration. The main casualty is Robert Lighthizer, Mr. Trump's hawkish trade representative, whose life's work is to make China alter course. Lighthizer said, don't go for the soybean solution. This is our one chance. China agreeing to buy more US soybeans and other commodities is exactly what Mr. Trump is seeking, saying that the agreement is likely to include snapback provisions that allow the US to reimpose tariffs on China. Even so, Mr. Trump will have surrendered a moment of acute leverage. Another few years of enforced technology transfer could be all China needs to take the lead in the race to dominate artificial intelligence. And then saying, two other consequences are apparent. Trump has opened the space for Democrats to say that he is soft on China. Second, his credibility as a negotiator would plumb new depths. Those limits have already been tested this week in his failed nuclear summit with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. It is wise when negotiating with Beijing to read strategists Sun Tzu or Karl von Clausewitz. Forewarned is forearmed. Mr. Trump seems to prefer the grand old Duke of York, who marched his men to the top of the hill, only to march them down again. I wrote a piece in July called Tariff Wars, Who Blinks First, and in that I was drawing a comparison with James Dean's Rebel Without a Cause, and in that you play a game where you're called a chickie run, where you race stolen cars towards the edge of a cliff. The first to eject out of his car is branded a chickie. We're going to see who is the chickie. And then previously I'd said that, the Achilles heel for Trump is the Dow Jones and soybeans. Moving on to another article I wrote about Trump in August 2017, I said any financial expert will tell you that President Trump's financial affairs are a smoking gun. I said Deutsche Bank loans were surely mirror transactions, where Deutsche Bank was a commission agent interposed between Trump and the real lender, and that all those sales where Trump proclaimed himself a genius because they were so off-market, we would all be incredulous, were essentially just that, incredible. And I said then, in 2017, there is a prima facie case here, and it's in plain sight. And now we've received a court document. This is via the funder. Trump's Russian mob-linked former senior advisor Felix Sater laundered $250 million using Trump properties. Those are these off-market trades I was talking about. The White House chief of staff at the time, John Kelly, wrote a contemporaneous internal memo about how he had been ordered by the president to give Jared Kushner top secret clearance. So this is now really turning out to be quite interesting. The real crisis with Trump doing what he did for Jared, he is within his rights, says John Podhoretz. Classification in the executive branch, its very existence, flows from him personally as president. So if he exempts his son-in-law, we're in Banana Republic territory. Here you see the son-in-law of the Turkish president meeting the son-in-law of the American president to discuss US-Turkey and their shared love of nepotism, says Ian Bremmer. And then I came across a tweet which is relevant. Any more on that allegation Jared gave MBS classified US intel he gleaned from the White House to round up his enemies? Think MBS has had one person murdered because of it. July 2017, I called Kushner the broker of our times, the Adnan Khashoggi at the court of King Donald the Trumpeter. Facebook and Google have probably decimated the rate of vaccination in the Western world, abetted at least one ethnic cleansing, and helped the Kremlin dupe millions of Americans. But we have no means to hold them responsible for any of it. And I wrote about this in March 2018 when I was advising everybody to sell Facebook, and then in that article I said, I was quoting Andrew Nix, we just put information into the bloodstream of the internet and then watch it grow, give it a little push every now and again over time to watch it take shape. And so this stuff infiltrates the online community and expands, but with no branding. So it's unattributable, untraceable. It's no use fighting elections on the facts, it's all about emotions. So the candidate is the puppet, the undercover reporter asked, always. replied Nix. Mim says, I have zero sympathy for the argument that big tech is a neutral communication platform, so it's people who are the real problem. And essentially, I agree with him. And I wrote about this when I said, in an extraordinary boomerang, the US's adversaries have turned social media on its head and used it as a Trojan horse via psychographic profiling and micro-targeting at a mass scale. And I said about Facebook, the fundamental challenge is that it has represented itself as an intermediary, but has been hawking our information as if it were an intermediary, and I called it its trust gap. The intention to indict Netanyahu is good for Israel's rule of law, says Bloomberg Opinion.